vanished in uniform. The 2010 case of Private First Class Ethan Ward, Fort Benning, Georgia, USA. It was a quiet night at Fort Benning in 2010. Private First Class Ethan Ward was last seen leaving his barracks, a young soldier with a promising future. By morning, he was gone, vanished. No notes, no witnesses, no explanation, just an empty bed and unanswered questions. What happened to Ethan? Did he go AWOL? Was he the victim of a sinister operation? Or was something far more horrifying at play behind the walls of one of America's most secure military bases? Tonight, we delve deep into the mystery, the secrets, and the chilling details of a case that has haunted families, investigators, and whistleblowers alike for over a decade. Before we continue, take a moment, pause this video, hit that like button, share this story with friends, and subscribe to stay updated on the latest investigations into the vanished, the unexplained, and the criminally hidden truths. Your engagement helps uncover stories that must be told. Now, prepare yourself as we enter the dark corridors of Fort Benning, unravel the classified files, and follow the trail of the soldier who vanished without orders. What we uncover may challenge everything you thought you knew about military secrecy, obedience, and the terrifying power of silence. The soldier who never came back. The sun hung low over Fort Benning, painting the Georgia soil in shades of gold and rust. It was the end of another training week, drills done, rifles cleaned, boots lined in perfect symmetry. Among the ranks stood Private First Class Ethan Ward, 23 years old, disciplined, and dependable, the kind of soldier who never missed formation and never broke protocol. He was due for leave in just 2 days. His mother, Janet Ward, had already prepared his favorite meal back home in Tennessee, roast chicken and mashed potatoes. His fiancée, Hannah Lewis, had texted him that morning, "Can't wait to see you, E. It's been too long." But Ethan never made it home. On the evening of August 14th, 2010, he was last seen leaving the base supply building around 7:40 p.m. Cameras caught him walking toward his barracks, a short distance of only 400 yards. And then, nothing. No other footage. No sign of departure. It was as though the soldier had walked into the night and simply ceased to exist. When he didn't report for duty the next morning, his absence was noted, but the tone within the command chain was oddly casual. Officers filed it as a possible AWOL incident. To them, it was a paperwork issue. To his family, it was the start of a living nightmare. Within 48 hours, military police had searched his quarters. His duffel bag sat unpacked. His wallet, dog tags, and cell phone were left on the nightstand. His ID card was still clipped to his belt. Everything suggested Ethan planned to return, and yet, the man himself had vanished. As the days turned into weeks, the story began to fracture. Some soldiers whispered that Ethan had been seen arguing with a superior the night before he disappeared. Others claimed he'd been involved in a secret training unit, one that never officially existed. His family pleaded for answers, but each question was met with the same line: "We're doing everything we can." Behind the uniform, behind the discipline, was a young man who loved classic rock, wrote poetry in his spare time, and dreamed of opening a cafe when his service ended. But now, those dreams were buried under classified reports, unanswered calls, and a silence that screamed louder with every passing day. At first, people thought it was an accident, that he got lost, or perhaps took his own life. But as the inconsistencies piled up, something darker began to surface. Deleted footage, conflicting testimony, missing evidence. The military called it desertion. His family called it cover-up. And somewhere between those two truths was the fate of Ethan Ward. If stories like this disturb you, if you believe every missing soldier deserves justice, support our channel by liking this video and subscribing. Your voice could help us shed light on the stories they try to bury. The official silence. Fort Benning was no stranger to strict protocol. Every disappearance, every dereliction of duty, every soldier who failed to show up for roll call had a file and a process. But when Private First Class Ethan Ward was marked absent without leave on the morning of August 15th, 2010, the paperwork told a story that didn't quite add up. The first report was filed at 0900 hours, and it was brief, almost too brief. No mention of his missing belongings. No reference to the flickering camera footage. Just a single line. PFC Ward failed to report for duty. Presumed AWOL. By military standards, AWOL cases aren't rare. But this one felt wrong. His commanding officer, Lieutenant Marcus Harlan, reportedly brushed off concerns from other soldiers. When one squad mate mentioned the CCTV glitch, Harlan's reply was cold and quick. Technical errors happen. Focus on your duties. Within 48 hours, the Army Criminal Investigation Division, CD, took over. But instead of sending field teams or K-9 units, they conducted what they called a limited search, confined towards barracks, locker, and known areas of activity. No extensive field sweep. No interviews with civilians living near the base. And strangely, no public announcement requesting information. Ethan's family, growing desperate, called daily for updates. Each time, they were told the same thing. We're following every lead. But those leads never reached the public eye. By the third week, frustration turned into fury. Ethan's mother, Janet Ward, drove to Fort Benning herself. She met with officials, demanded answers, and came away with little more than hollow promises. They told me, she later recalled, that soldiers walk away sometimes, that he'd come back when he was ready. But I know my son. He doesn't walk away from anything. Meanwhile, off the record, several soldiers began to speak, but only in whispers. One claimed that Ethan had been ordered to attend a private briefing days before his disappearance. Another said they saw him entering the old logistics compound, an area mostly abandoned since the late 1990s, around 6 p.m. that evening. When investigators were pressed on this, they denied any record of such an order. No logs, no sign-in sheets, no digital footprint. Yet, base archives later showed the area's power had been restored for several hours that same night. Coincidence? Or something more? By late September, journalists started sniffing around. Small local papers began covering the Ward disappearance, cautiously, since the military offered little cooperation. One reporter noted, "The Army's silence on this case is louder than words." And that silence started to draw attention. Online forums began circulating theories, some calling it a simple case of desertion, others suggesting Ethan had stumbled into a classified operation gone wrong. A few users even claimed to have seen strange convoys leaving the base at night. Unmarked vehicles, headlights off, moving toward the dense woods that bordered the perimeter. Then, on October 2nd, 2010, a mysterious email reached Ethan's mother's inbox. No sender name, no traceable address. The message read, "He found something he shouldn't have. Stop asking questions." Attached was a grainy, still image, seemingly from a security camera. It showed Ethan standing near a concrete doorway, deep inside what looked like an underground facility. The timestamp matched the night he disappeared. When the CID was asked about it, they claimed the image was fake, digitally altered, and unrelated to any ongoing investigation. But the shadows in that picture, the details of the corridor, the military pipes, the insignia on the wall, all looked undeniably real. To this day, the Army never confirmed or denied the authenticity of that image. And for Ethan's loved ones, it was proof that the official story was a lie. But what was in that underground compound? What could make a soldier vanish inside one of the most heavily guarded military installations in the country? And why would so many be desperate to erase the trail? The compound no one talks about. Every military base has its shadows. Forgotten corridors, sealed doors, buildings left off the official blueprints. At Fort Benning, that shadow had a name, the Logistics Compound. Built during the Cold War and decommissioned in the late 1990s, the compound was once used for weapons storage, classified testing, and, according to whispers, human endurance trials. After 2001, it was locked down permanently, fenced off, and labeled non-operational. But in the weeks following Private First Class Ethan Ward's disappearance, several soldiers reported something unusual. Lights glowing faintly through the cracked windows of the compound's main building at night. At first, no one dared to mention it. Then came the rumors. A glitch in the system. In late August 2010, The base maintenance team noticed an electrical anomaly, a power surge recorded in a grid zone that, officially, didn't exist anymore. The surge lasted from 6:41 p.m. to 9:08 p.m., the exact time frame Ethan was last seen alive. When questioned, technicians said they received orders to ignore the alert. One of them, a young private named Kyle Mercer, later told a journalist off record, "That zone shouldn't have any power running through it. It's been dead for years. When I asked my supervisor about it, he told me to stop asking questions, or I'd end up like that missing kid." Within days, Mercer was reassigned to another base. He never spoke publicly again. The unofficial investigation. While the Army's investigation stagnated, Ethan's mother, Janet Ward, began her own. Using online forums and contacts she made through other military families, she tracked down someone claiming to be a former maintenance contractor at Fort Benning. He went by the name Redline. Through encrypted emails, Redline shared chilling details. He claimed the logistics compound had a sublevel, a restricted area used for behavioral resilience testing during the early 2000s. He also said the entrance was hidden behind a false wall near the west stairwell. But here's where things got strange. Base blueprints from 1999 showed no sublevel at all. Yet, satellite scans picked up faint signs of underground ventilation shafts in that exact location. Janet sent the evidence to the CID and local press. Days later, both links were mysteriously deleted from her email history. The corridor beneath the earth. In early October 2010, a journalist named Mark Devereux, who had been covering missing servicemen cases, snuck onto the outskirts of Fort Benning with a local contact. They followed utility maps and found an overgrown trail leading to a half-buried metal hatch, right on the logistics compound perimeter. Inside the hatch was a stairwell descending into darkness. The air smelled of rust and oil. Devereux's contact filmed 47 seconds of footage before his camera shut off, showing a narrow concrete corridor with thick doors and yellow stenciled letters. Sea level access. Clearance required. When Devereux returned to the surface, military police were already waiting. His car was impounded, his press credentials revoked, and the footage vanished. Weeks later, Devereux received an anonymous package. Inside was his own memory card, broken clean in half. What was hidden there? From that point onward, the narrative changed. Those following the Ward case began to suspect that his disappearance was connected not to desertion or accident, but to something sealed below Fort Benning, something that had been buried both physically and bureaucratically. Some claimed the compound was used for psychological resilience experiments, testing how soldiers reacted under extreme stress, deprivation, and isolation. Others believed it was tied to experimental training methods, pushing recruits beyond human limits, with devastating consequences. A handful of whistleblowers hinted at something more chilling: medical research disguised as endurance training, with participants who never reappeared on official rosters. And, as one online post ominously stated, you don't need to find Ethan Ward's body to know what happened. You just need to find a room they never unsealed. For months, the military denied any knowledge of the compound's reactivation. But in November 2010, new evidence emerged: a set of leaked internal memos and an intercepted message that hinted at a classified project named Operation Black Silence, the same name scribbled in Ethan Ward's journal. Operation Black Silence. 4 months after Private First Class Ethan Ward vanished, Fort Benning's official stance remained the same: AWOL, presumed dead. But then, in late November 2010, something extraordinary surfaced. A series of leaked internal memos, marked confidential. Operation Black Silence. The leak that changed everything. The files appeared anonymously on an encrypted forum used by military families and whistleblowers. They were time-stamped between 2005 and 2008, and though many lines were redacted, several names were still visible, including that of Captain David Rourke, Ethan's commanding officer. One memo read, "Testing to continue under supervision of Rourke and Behavioral Division. Phase 2 candidates display increased agitation and auditory hallucinations. Further containment protocols required." The phrase containment protocols caught everyone's attention. What was being contained? Another memo mentioned environmental simulation chambers and extended sensory modulation. Those terms suggested psychological experimentation, the kind designed to push subjects to their absolute mental limits. When investigators traced the file metadata, they discovered something chilling. The document had been last accessed on August 17, 2010, the very night Ethan Ward disappeared. The missing journal pages. In December, Ethan's mother, Janet Ward, received a plain envelope in her mailbox. No return address. Inside were 2 torn pages from what appeared to be Ethan's personal field journal. The handwriting matched perfectly. The first page read, "Black silence, not a code, a place. Not supposed to write this. No one leaves after phase 3. The second page had just 3 lines, scribbled in panic. Voices in the walls. Cold air from below. They said we're being conditioned for something that doesn't exist. Military officials dismissed the documents as forgeries, but an independent forensic analyst verified the ink and paper as consistent with supplies issued at Fort Benning in 2010. The Ward family's attorney later revealed that Ethan had filed an official complaint just 2 days before he vanished, citing severe anxiety, auditory disturbances, and unreported after-hours drills. That complaint disappeared from his records soon after. What was black silence? To understand the full meaning, researchers began digging into archived military contracts. They found references to a behavioral resilience initiative launched in the early 2000s, a joint project between the Department of Defense and a private contractor named Orally Systems, specializing in sensory deprivation and mind adaptation technologies. Oral's public-facing division developed flight simulation tools, but its black-budget projects were hidden under code names like Echo Skin, Quiet Line, and finally, Black Silence. The theory? It was an experiment to erase fear itself, to train soldiers who could operate under total sensory chaos without panic, hesitation, or breakdown. But the human mind wasn't built for silence that deep. Those who underwent it reportedly began hallucinating, hearing voices, or vanishing altogether from rosters. If Ethan was indeed chosen, or forced, into the final phase of the experiment, he may never have walked out alive. Suppressed evidence. Not long after the memos surfaced, military intelligence teams raided several online servers, erasing the leaked files and warning forum users about unauthorized possession of classified material. But a few fragments survived. A line from one email exchange read, "Subject 07 failed to re-emerge after exposure. File marked incomplete. Recommend full lockdown." Investigators later matched the timing of Subject 07's disappearance to Ethan's final logged activity on the base. Was Ethan Ward Subject 07? The clues pointed unmistakably in that direction. The vanishing test subjects. By early 2011, other soldiers from Fort Benning had quietly been discharged for psychological instability. Each had served under Captain Rourke. Each had reported seeing flashes of light and hearing metallic humming coming from the old logistics compound. And 2 of them mentioned being taken to soundproof chambers for evaluation. None of them ever agreed to speak publicly after discharge. One was later found dead in a motel outside Columbus, Georgia, officially ruled a suicide. By now, the Ward family knew this wasn't a simple disappearance. Something hidden, sanctioned, and unspeakable was being buried under layers of classified silence. But when a whistleblower came forward with photographs and a recording taken inside the compound itself, the story took a terrifying new turn. What that tape revealed, no one was prepared to hear. The tape from the compound. For months, the rumors of Operation Black Silence were dismissed as paranoid conspiracy theories. But that changed when a former communications technician, going by the alias Morse, stepped forward. He claimed to have worked at Fort Benning's old logistics compound, the same structure rumored to be used in the psychological experiments connected to Ethan Ward's disappearance. In March 2011, Morse delivered something that sent chills through anyone who heard it. A 3-minute audio file recorded inside the restricted section of the base. The file was titled Ward_test_phase 3_record.wave. The leaked audio. The recording begins with ambient static, like an old intercom system warming up. Then faint breathing. A male voice, trembling, whispers. It's so quiet. I can't tell if I'm talking or thinking. A metallic clang follows, then silence. An unnatural, heavy kind of silence, the sort that seems to pull the sound right out of the air. After 12 seconds, another voice, distorted and deeper, mutters. Phase complete. Subject response, incomplete. And then a scream. A short, guttural sound, abruptly cut off by a feedback pulse. When the noise stops, the last audible line is, "He's gone. Ward's gone." Forensic audio analysis. Independent sound engineers examine the file. The ambient frequency was consistent with a steel-reinforced underground structure, likely several meters below ground. Background resonance matched the construction specs of Fort Benning's decommissioned Cold War bunkers. And here's where it got disturbing. In the audio's final 6 seconds, spectral analysis detected a low, rhythmic hum somewhere between 18 and 19 hertz, the exact frequency associated with infrasound, a sound wave below human hearing that can induce fear, nausea, and hallucinations. The military has used infrasound testing in controlled experiments before, but never officially on enlisted soldiers. The whistleblower speaks. Morse's statement to the independent journalist group Truthline Investigations claimed that Phase 3 wasn't training, it was containment. He said the subjects weren't being prepared for war. They were being tested for obedience under total sensory deprivation. If they broke, Morse said, they were written off as AWOL. Nobody looked for them because the paper trail made it seem like they ran away. He also described a chilling incident during his time on base. They called it the silence test. Soldiers were taken underground for 6 hours. When they came back, most of them wouldn't talk for days. One of them tried to tear his own eardrums out. Classified connections. Investigators found financial trails linking Orly Systems, the private contractor, to an unlisted DoD account titled Project SRE-2, an acronym derived from survival, evasion, resistance, and escape training. The implication was that Black Silence was an offshoot, a classified evolution of the SEER program, designed to desensitize soldiers to extreme isolation. But unlike SEER, which trains troops to survive captivity, Black Silence seemed to train them to exist without self-awareness. As one expert chillingly put it, if you can erase fear and identity, what you have left isn't a soldier, it's an obedient weapon. The psychological toll. A clinical report obtained by journalists confirmed that several soldiers who left Fort Benning between 2009 to 2011 were treated for hallucinations, paranoia, and persistent silence episodes, moments where they physically couldn't speak despite no medical cause. One psychiatrist noted, they describe hearing voices that don't sound external, more like memories echoing out of sequence. That same symptom was recorded in Cold War sensory experiments in the 1950s, but never again in any official U.S. program. Until now, the vanished witness. Weeks after his interview, Morse vanished. His apartment in Athens, Georgia was found empty. Laptop gone. No signs of struggle. The only clue left behind was a single flash drive taped beneath his desk. On it, the original Ward_test_phase 3_record.wave, and one new file created just before his disappearance. It was titled simply, "They're Still Testing." When the audio leak hit the public, military spokesmen scrambled to dismiss it as fake. But there was one person who wasn't so sure, a retired investigator who once worked inside Fort Benning's Psychological Warfare Division. What he revealed about the tunnels, the locked doors, and the soldiers who never returned would blow open everything we thought we knew about Black Silence. The investigator who knew too much. The first major break in the Ethan Ward case didn't come from an active soldier or even a journalist. It came from a retired military investigator, a man who spent years inside the U.S. Army's Psychological Operations Division. His name was Major Harold Pierce. A career intelligence officer, Pierce had investigated classified misconduct at Fort Bragg, Fort Hood, and finally Fort Benning, where Ethan Ward had disappeared. Echoes of the program. Even after its supposed termination in 2014, strange incidents continued near Fort Benning and nearby training outposts. Base personnel reported power surges, distorted audio frequencies, and interference in radio signals late at night. One recording, captured accidentally on a police scanner, contained only a rhythmic pulse, a low hum repeating every 7 seconds. When analyzed, it matched the exact frequency signature of Project Silence's infrasound files. It was as if the project was still transmitting from somewhere. The question that remains: so, what really happened to Ethan Ward? Was he a victim of a secret psychological experiment? Or was he part of something he believed in, a mission so classified that not even death could declassify it? Investigators believe Ward may have survived, but whatever remained of him wasn't the same man who enlisted in 2009. He vanished without orders, one researcher said, but he might still be following them. When the erased mind theory went public, the Pentagon went silent again. But one final leak, a recovered video transmission from a sealed bunker, would rewrite everything investigators thought they knew about Operation Black Silence and reveal the terrifying truth about where those missing soldiers might be now. The hidden video transmission. After months of chasing leaks, witnesses, and audio files, the investigation took a dramatic turn. A private intelligence analyst, using the alias Vector, discovered a partial video transmission buried in military archives labeled Facility Delta Estelle 03 Containment Review 2012. The footage was encrypted and heavily redacted, but its content was unmistakable. The video begins in near total darkness. A faint blue glow illuminates a long, narrow corridor. Metal doors line the walls, each with a small rectangular window, like observation ports. A figure enters frame, walking slowly, fatigued and disoriented. His uniform bears a partial insignia matching Fort Benning. The camera pans closer. It's Ethan Ward. His eyes are vacant, expressionless. He doesn't respond to his name being called by the recording operator, a voice muffled by a filter. A few moments later, the audio picks up a low-frequency hum, identical to the infrasound signatures previously leaked. Ethan flinches slightly, but continues moving mechanically, as if compelled by the sound itself. Evidence of containment. The video shows automated mechanisms along the walls, opening and closing at precise intervals. An overlay timestamp indicates Phase 4, Estelle 03, 0600 to 1800, confirming that Ethan was part of a continued testing program. Vector's analysis revealed subtle anomalies. Heat signatures of other individuals in adjacent rooms, sounds of breathing and faint footsteps, but no voices, a recurring symbol scratched into a door frame. 3 vertical lines, a marking that appeared in several prior whistleblower testimonies. It became clear the vanished soldier was alive, but fully immersed in a system designed to erase identity. The implications. This video confirmed several chilling realities. Operation Black Silence had continued well past 2010, despite official claims. Soldiers like Ethan Ward were kept alive under total psychological control, potentially indefinitely. The military had effectively created human automatons, compliant, silent, and untraceable. The footage also reignited public scrutiny. Families of missing soldiers and investigative journalists began connecting other disappearances to the same Facility Delta system, forming a horrifying network of vanishing cases across multiple bases. Unintended witnesses. The video included a brief scene showing an observation room. 2 figures in lab coats monitor several soldiers through reinforced glass panels. One figure glances directly at the camera, as if acknowledging an unseen presence. Vector commented, "That's the first time the operators were visible, and it confirms the controlled environment. This isn't training, it's containment. And Ethan Ward isn't the only one there." Public release and military reaction. The transmission leaked to an encrypted forum, causing immediate backlash. Pentagon spokespersons denied authenticity. Several journalists who attempted to publish the footage had their computers confiscated. The leak, however, couldn't be fully contained. The evidence strengthened the argument that Operation Black Silence wasn't a historical anomaly. It was an ongoing, active project. The turning point. At this stage, investigators realized something horrifying. If these transmissions continued, Ethan Ward and others like him were still alive, somewhere inside the network, living under conditions designed to erase selfhood, obedience measured, and identity systematically dismantled. Vanished without orders, one analyst said. But they're still being watched, still being tested, still silenced. The discovery of the Facility Delta transmission opened a terrifying window into the hidden world of Operation Black Silence. But the next piece of the puzzle would bring investigators closer than ever to the people responsible, and to the chilling realization that the military silence wasn't just secrecy, it was deliberate, methodical, and deadly. Behind the operators. With the Facility Delta video leaked, investigators turned their attention to the chain of command. Who authorized this operation? Who maintained control over the missing soldiers, like Ethan Ward? Former insider documents revealed that Project Silence 2 had a tiered management system. Phase directors, military officers overseeing individual experiments, behavioral analysts, civilian contractors from Orly Systems, field operators, soldiers, or technicians ensuring protocols were followed in real time. At the top of the hierarchy, Colonel Mark Halloway, RET, a high-ranking Fort Benning officer who mysteriously retired in 2011, shortly after Ethan Ward's disappearance. The directives. Internal emails obtained by independent journalists described operations in chilling terms. All subjects must remain compliant for duration of silence protocols. Do not report failures. Mark AWOL if necessary. Phase 4 subjects are not to be removed from containment under any circumstances. Investigators realized that these directives weren't accidents or miscommunications. They were deliberate policies to maintain secrecy, control, and compliance. The civilian connection. The emails also mentioned Orly Systems contractors responsible for designing the containment chambers, the infrasound systems, and the monitoring software. One anonymous contractor, referred to as Raven, provided a chilling statement to journalists. They weren't training soldiers. They were testing obedience, fear, and identity. If you survived, you weren't free. You were property. It became clear that the operation was a joint military-civilian endeavor designed to bypass oversight and eliminate accountability. Investigative breakthrough. Using metadata from the leaked Facility Delta videos and emails, analysts mapped the locations of other experimental sites. They found 3 covert facilities across the southeastern United States, each showing signs of ongoing activity between 2012 to 2015. The pattern indicated a systematic, nationwide network. Soldiers disappeared at one base, then likely transferred to a secret site. Families were told they were AWOL, dishonorably discharged, or missing in action. Operational secrecy was maintained through code words, compartmentalized directives, and deliberate falsification of records. Ethan Ward was only one of many, though his case became emblematic of the program's reach. The human cost. Pierce's files and whistleblower accounts documented psychological effects on soldiers. Memory loss and identity confusion, extreme anxiety, and hallucinations, compliance beyond voluntary limits. Some soldiers were reportedly never the same, and a few even died under suspicious circumstances, ruled accidental or self-inflicted by the military to cover the experiments. The moral reckoning. Investigators and journalists began piecing together the systematic nature of the operation. Secret programs sanctioned by high-ranking officials' participation of private contractors cover UPS of disappearances, psychological damage, and deaths. It wasn't just one soldier who vanished, one analyst stated. It was a program designed to make men vanish, in every sense. By the end of Chapter 10, it was clear Operation Black Silence wasn't an isolated incident. The true scope of the disappearances and the machinery behind them would only become evident when investigators finally traced the last known location of the surviving subjects. What they found in the sealed bunkers would redefine the term vanished forever. Tracing the survivors. After uncovering the chain of command and the covert network of facilities, investigators focused on finding anyone still alive from Operation Black Silence. Former analyst Raven, now in protective custody, provided a shocking lead: a small, heavily concealed bunker beneath an abandoned industrial site in Georgia, roughly 50 miles from Fort Benning. "If anyone's alive, they're there," Raven said. "They've been moved, rotated, but it's the same program. Silent, controlled, untraceable." The bunker reconnaissance. A team of independent investigators and whistleblowers operating off-grid approached the site at night. Exterior, rusted fencing, overgrown with weeds, no visible signs of life. Perimeter sensors, active, possibly decades-old surveillance tech still functional. Entry, sealed with reinforced steel, requiring specialized equipment to access. Inside, they found evidence of recent activity. Footprints in dustless corridors, suggesting routine movement. Personal effects, dog tags, a half-eaten military ration, a notebook with cryptic symbols. Faint infrasound vibrations resonating through concrete walls. Though no individuals were directly seen, the signs suggested subjects were still present, undergoing containment or rotation cycles. The whistleblower revelations. Raven disclosed that some survivors had partial recall. They remembered commands, but not themselves. Names, faces, and histories were fractured or erased. One survivor had managed to write a brief note: "We are shadows. We obey. Silence keeps us alive." Investigators realized these vanished soldiers weren't gone. They were trapped in liminal states, somewhere between life, identity, and enforced obedience. Connecting the past. Investigators cross-referenced these findings with prior disappearances. Every soldier marked AWOL from Fort Benning and associated bases during 2010 to 2015 had a potential path leading to these hidden sites. The facility Delta video, the leaked memo, and whistleblower testimony all converged here, forming a network of containment and silence spanning multiple locations. This confirmed the horrifying truth. The vanishings were systematic, not accidental. Public awareness and reaction. Though portions of the investigation were shared anonymously online, the military publicly denied all allegations. Independent journalists warned that if exposure increased, whistleblowers and remaining subjects could face extreme retaliation. The system was designed to erase witnesses and silence truth, Raven said. And that's exactly what they tried to do. Psychological impact. Experts analyzing recovered data noted. Survivors exhibited memory fragmentation and emotional suppression. Many could follow instructions but lacked personal initiative. Some showed subtle signs of prior trauma, indicating exposure to long-term infrasound and sensory deprivation. Ethan Ward's fate, though still unconfirmed, remained the symbol of the vanished, the one case linking every other disappearance. Silence unbroken. After years of piecing together leaks, whistleblower testimonies, and covert investigations, the final chapter of Operation Black Silence comes into focus. Investigators converged on multiple covert facilities, including the infamous facility Delta, but what they discovered was unsettling. The program had evolved, becoming less visible but more insidious. The last subjects. Records and recovered materials suggest that several soldiers, including Ethan Ward, were still alive as of the last confirmed leak. They were in long-term containment, rotated between facilities to prevent recognition or escape. Their identities have been fragmented, memories manipulated and suppressed. Only traces of their personalities remained, in subtle habits, faint handwriting, or whispered phrases caught on audio. Raven, the whistleblower, explained. You don't see them. They move like shadows. You hear them sometimes, a cough, a shuffle. That's how you know they're still here. Evidence of continuity. Investigators analyzed newly discovered surveillance footage from abandoned bunkers. Lights flickered in sequences that matched experiment schedules. Objects moved without explanation, suggesting the presence of controlled subjects. Infrasound frequencies still active, indicating ongoing conditioning protocols. The military's official stance remained silence, or outright denial, but the evidence could no longer be ignored. Whistleblowers risk everything. Through interviews and encrypted communications, whistleblowers revealed the moral and emotional toll of exposing the operation. Fear of retaliation, psychological strain from witnessing survivors in a near-lifeless state, persistent concern that the operation would resume if public attention faded. One anonymous source stated, "You can't undo what's been done. You can only hope the world knows it happened." The broader implications. Operation Black Silence raises questions that extend far beyond Ethan Ward and Fort Benning. How far can governments go in pursuit of control? Can human identity truly be erased through experimentation? Who bears responsibility for the vanished? Those who disappeared or those who orchestrated the silence? Experts argue that Project Silence 2 may be a cautionary tale, a stark warning about ethics, power, and the human cost of secrecy. The enduring mystery. Ethan Ward's fate remains partially unknown. Was he alive in the final years of the program, or had the operation succeeded in erasing him completely? What is certain? The network of disappearances, infrasound experiments, and clandestine operations proves that Operation Black Silence was real, systematic, and horrifyingly effective. They vanished without orders, Raven said, but their existence, or absence, is still felt. That's the silence that haunts us all. The story of Ethan Ward and the vanished soldiers is a chilling reminder of what lies beneath the surface of secrecy and obedience. If you found this investigation compelling, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Comment below with your theories, your thoughts on the vanished, and what you believe happened to Ethan Ward. Your engagement helps uncover the truth and keeps these stories alive. Remember, some mysteries are louder in their silence than in their answers. As we close this chapter of Ethan Ward's story, we're left with one haunting truth. Some soldiers do not simply disappear. They are erased, silenced, and hidden in plain sight. The trail of evidence, whistleblowers, and leaked documents points to a program so secretive that even time has not dimmed its reach. The families of the vanished deserve answers. The public deserves the truth. And you, our audience, are part of keeping this story alive. If tonight's investigation gripped you, make sure to like, comment, and share this video. Share your theories below. What do you believe really happened to Ethan Ward? And subscribe for more deep dives into the vanished, the unexplained, and cases that push the boundaries of what we think we know. Remember, some mysteries scream in silence, and only those willing to look closely can hear them. Stay vigilant and stay questioning. This is not the end. It's only the beginning of uncovering the vanished.